All right. Hey, episode 5 of our newest season of More Than Chaos. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in on Spotify or Apple Music. Got my guy Camden here today. We're going to have a good conversation. One of the things about ministry is you get to be, at least pastoral ministry, you get to be involved in things on Sunday mornings. And I don't know often if parents of junior hires know why we do what we do. So just thought this would be a good conversation for them and for us to kind of explain and define why we do Sundays and why we even do it the way we do it. We call this podcast More Than Chaos. We want to be a podcast that helps parents see that there's more to parenting at junior hire than the chaos that goes around. And I feel like Sunday mornings can be a break from the chaos at times. So, Cam, to talk about yourself a little bit, because I know you like doing that. So.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing in the world, actually. My name's Camden. I've been serving here at Eastview for about a year and a half with the junior high ministry, leading worship, kind of overseeing worship teams, tech team. It's been an honor and a joy. Just glad to be here. Worship is a huge passion of mine. Been doing it, leading worship for over 10 years now, which is crazy.
Is that what you wanted to do? Like, when did you think to yourself, okay, this is where God is leading me?
Probably that first year of college. I went to Lincoln Christian Bible College here in Illinois. I'd grown up with music, started kind of serving in my little youth group band, playing guitar, but didn't really know if that's something that I wanted to do as my job one day. And I think really my freshman year kind of fell in love with worship and really serving the church, building people up through what I do. And so that's kind of like that first year of college really kind of clicked for me, and just kind of really, I think most people at that first year of college, it's a good experience, kind of understanding more about who you are, and I think that was true for me, and kind of discovering what God was calling me to, the gifts He has given me, and how to use it for the kingdom. And so, that's kind of where it started for me. And then been here at Eastview about a year and a half, and married to my wife Lindsay. And
tell us a little bit about what does she do?
So Lindsay is, she's great. She's my better half for sure, and challenges me, helps me grow every day. But she actually has been serving in campus ministry here in town, Encounter, and so she's one of the campus ministers here, and so that's kind of a cool area that I get to help out with too, and kind of see a different side of ministry, what all that God's doing over there. So
that's good. Okay, well let's look at we have a lot of different things that we try to do to position ourselves in a place of influence when it comes to junior high students and even parents. And one of those things is we work to offer programming. I don't know if you'd call it program. We'll get into that, like why it's called programming here in a little bit. But we try to offer an experience for students on Sunday mornings. Eastview, the way it's made up, if you're not from here or go here, is that we have all the way up babies through high school students meet on Sunday mornings in their different areas, different venues, and then adults meet together. Young adults usually meet, I think that's a couple of times a month on Thursdays. Is that right? Like Josh is going to be like, no, You got it wrong.
Thursday and Sunday.
Thursday and
I want to
Sunday.
say, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but for us, like primarily working with junior high students, there is a moment where a parent has to let their junior higher go down the hallway. It's a long hallway, and some of you that are parents of sixth graders, you understand this because you just did this like 4 months ago. Some of you maybe are new to this and you're like, yeah, that is a really long hallway. The question is like, what happens when they get into that gym? Because that's what we do here. We have a gym that we turn into really our own space on Sunday mornings. So the thing I want to like dive into today is like, we have different elements that we do throughout a morning. We do worship songs, we preach, we have reflection times, we do communion. Those are kind of the 4 big markers, and then we try to do some other stuff within that. Question is like, why? Like, why do we feel it's valuable for junior hires to experience that? Why should parents look at what we do and see that as important, especially when they wake up in the morning and they've got a bad headache or their dog peed all over the floor? Like, I don't want to go anywhere, that kind of stuff. Like, why is it valuable for them to see Sunday morning is valuable for their kids, So I guess the first thing would just be like, how do you feel about Sundays being an important aspect of just a follower of Jesus's life and those that don't follow Jesus? Like, why should it be important?
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that came to mind as you're mentioning it, and I feel like a big part of what we try to do, we plan a service and all of that, but I feel like a big prayer for me each week, even before we get into that, is God, would you make this a welcoming space for any student that's coming into this space, and the life of a junior high school student, there's some challenging years and trying to figure out who I am and where I fit in. And so I feel like even before we get into, worship, quote unquote, just kind of setting that atmosphere is something that I feel like we do a good job of, creating the gym space that, this is a safe place for you to come and be seen and known, and we try to have some fun and make it light, and I feel like that's important to say, like at the front end before you even get into the rest of it. Just that, I just feel like we do a good job of that.
Yeah, I do too. I think for me, like I can be critical of just about anything, but like especially in like what we do, because I a lot of times help architect, like design that and think through that, and I'm critical of my own self, so I hope we do. Like I think we do. Like I think students enjoy coming into the space and like being around. I do think like the program piece of it changes to an experience in a way, like when you start thinking about their emotions, their feelings, their relationships with each other. That's when you move away from that, like I said earlier, that program to experience piece, because that's what we want to do. And it's really easy for churches and even youth ministries to be like, no, this is what we do and this is why we program things this way. I would love for us to be known as a place that creates an experience for students to connect with Jesus and with each other. But can we look at and talk through like what the elements of the Sunday that matter to us and why they matter to us? Like, you know what? You're the worship guy.
I'm the worship guy.
That's
my official title.
No, that's good. Titles are so long. Can we? Why do we sing?
Yeah. I'd love to kind of share about that. I mean, the first thing I want to say is like, sometimes we say when we're coming into worship that that we're coming into God's presence, and we say prayers like, "Come, Holy Spirit," And I think what we mean by that when we say that is not that we're necessarily entering into God's presence, because God has revealed himself to be present with us in all times, all places. But um, there's something about when God's people come together and we have these rhythms and practices um, that can help us to come to have a greater awareness of his presence, how he's been working in my life, how he's working in the lives of those around us. Um, and so that when we do these things, when we come together, we can have an encounter because um, uh, we know that these rhythms can help us raise our awareness. That's kind of how I think about it. And just kind of going through like, okay, but how do we do that? What are the different things? I mean, um, I think most of all, God speaks to us faithfully through his word. And so um, when our sermon messages are, saturated with scripture, our songs are telling, the story of God revealed through scripture, our thoughts in communion, they're pointing us to the work of Christ. I think um, these are the things that can help us to know God's presence more and more. An awareness that he is personally present, and so I guess that's kind of where I'd start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes for anyone to stop and look for what God's doing around you. If you're not, sometimes you need that little like encouragement. I think about that with Sundays. Like every time I walk in 20 minutes before, I might not have been thinking about what the presence of God looked like in my life, even though the presence of God is present. So to have something that helps usher that in,
Yeah,
recentering, refocusing is just good. So
yeah, I just feel like we need that right now more than ever. Just such this moment in our culture, just being distracted and anxious, and everything outside there's always something fighting for our attention. We need these moments to kind of slow down and recenter on God. And that doesn't always have to be like, slow and completely still. I mean, we have times of celebration that point us to the victory of the resurrection and the hope of our future because of that. And so there's this all these things help us just to recenter on who God is and what he's done. And I think that shapes how we go out and live. That changes our perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the hardest parts about the pandemic for so many people is when churches shut down, they lost that element of community, I forget what you said just a second ago, but like even that recentering opportunity week to week. Yeah, you could watch online, but let's be honest, like that was really hard to do over and over again.
Yeah.
So I just remember that with so many people, like when they came back to the building, were like, we missed this so much. And I don't know if people realized it would be a miss until it was taken away from them, like so many other things. But so when it comes to song, yeah, I don't like to sing around other people, because I think I have the worst voice. Well, not the worst voice. I've heard some, but like even when I listen to myself on this podcast, I'm like, you know?
Yep.
So let alone like trying to have melody, with something. So why why is that important? Like why is song important? I know
Hmm.
like for
Yeah.
you, like I mean, that's what you love to sing, you love to play, like that's an important aspect of your worship, but why should it be an important aspect to others?
Yeah, that's good. I I I'm a big nerd about this kind of stuff. I think about it all the time.
That's why I
So
asked
this
you.
is good. Um, yeah, I mean, when I think about musical worship, I think what stands out to me right now is, like you said during the pandemic, it's different when there's people in the room and we're singing over each other. There's a I talk about this sometimes. There's kind of a vertical dimension to worship. Us singing to God, He's revealing Himself to us. There's kind of a conversation, but it also goes horizontal, the way we can encourage each other, build each other up, and I think there's both when we're singing, because we're singing to God. We're also singing over each other and encouraging each other. And when we sing, there's just a lot of power in that. Just the way, um, we express our faith, the way it can encourage other people and build them up. Um, and that's different when you have people in the room than when you're just more so online, not really engaged in the same way. There's something to that kind of incarnational, we're all here and doing this together. And I also think what we've, um, over the last several years have really latched onto with musical worship and why it's so important is because, it engages our whole body. Um, I think, love the scripture, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. Um, I think worship helps us to do that too, to worship not just with our intellect, though we do that, but to engage our body. There's a kind of knowledge that comes when we're worshiping with our body, with our whole selves. And so I think, um, with musical worship, why that's so important and attractive is that it's holistic and invites us to really engage with God with all that we are, respond to who He is, and um, whether we're a professional singer or we're just, um, you know,
Some dude in a Cardinals hat.
yeah, some dude
Yeah.
in a Cardinals hat. I mean, we're all in this together, and there's a place for everyone,
Mm,
and everyone's voice matters. I think that's the message I try to embody in my
mm.
leadership. Um, yeah. What do
Yeah,
you think?
that's really good. No, you're right. Like I think that there are moments where I don't sing just so I can listen to the others, especially when you're in a junior high service and you're seeing these seventh grade boys lift up their hands with like, just a lack of any care.
Yep.
It's like, man, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's
I know
beautiful.
what tomorrow might be. Tomorrow might be hard for you,
Yep.
but today is what it is for you in this moment. Right now, you're connecting with your creator.
Yeah.
And that's the best we can do right there.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. And even I think about like this guy, Levi, who just went out for the worship team, and to think about how he's, really popular kid, good athlete, like one of those guys that's like you could probably when it comes to some stuff like think we could maybe lose that guy to the world. And he's like,
Mm.
I just want to sing, I just want to be a part of our worship team and just go at it. And it's just like, man, dude, you are such an encouragement to me. I just think about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think what's so beautiful about what I get to do is, and just specifically with junior high ministry, high school ministry too. Um, I don't know if it's a generational thing or something like that. I'm not an expert, but it just seems like there's just an eagerness, um, an openness to try new things, engage with God in new ways. Just seems like there's some kind of wave, um, and that's really encouraging, and exciting.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So that's not all we do. We don't just sing. We also have a sermon. We
Yep.
do communion, and we do reflection times. And I don't know how long we'll be able to spend on all of these, but one of the reasons, if I could just maybe even hit on the preaching side, because I do that a lot within our services. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel you're gonna not, I don't know how you're gonna feel about this one, but I feel like preaching is important. It's an important aspect of what we do. I don't feel like it's the king of what we do. And I feel like I've tried even in the last couple of years to make sure that students don't see that the preacher is the prime. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
That's why we try to bring in other communicators. That's why we just try to elevate all aspects of what we do. I don't know. Is that wrong? I just feel like sometimes I don't want to become like a narcissist, like I know my own arrogance and my own pride, and
Yeah.
I feel like a platform like that could lead to that, and I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think, whenever there's some danger, when we're, we put ourselves up on a stage, we have, these lights and give us a microphone, giving us that platform. And I've been encouraged, just kind of some of your thoughts, like what you've already shared is, and I think this kind of embodies how we think about worship and student ministry, especially, is that, and I hear this, week in, week out, and, when we're praying over the service, and, God, we pray that you would be the center and not, help us to get out of the way. Because I mean, I think that embodies what we're trying to do on Sundays, is to make much of Jesus and point people to him, whether that's through the sermon or communion, singing. I think it's all, in my understanding, like that's the overarching vision of what we're trying to do in worship. Gather people together and point us all in the same direction.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a place we're at just with ECU students. Like if you're a parent of an 8th grader, like going into high school next year, like you're going to feel that, you're going to experience that in the same way. Like to know that there's a desire to make much of Jesus and not to elevate. I hope not. I don't know. Some people might be like, you're lying. I don't know. But I hope I'm trying. I know you are, to not be the focus,
Yeah.
But so we preach, we do these micro sermons. That's what we're trying right now, where we break them up into a couple chunks. I even think like the service alone is a sermon, and because everything that we do is kind of wrapped around the same thought for the morning.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a boom, 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 I don't know, call it boom, 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 but like, just like
It's official.
Yeah, that's right. We should change that. Yeah. But when we also like do communion, and I don't know, like some of you might have grown up like in the Catholic faith, some, and more, where the Eucharist is, not as important. So we have all kinds of different backgrounds that come in our building, our gym.
Yep.
But we do communion. Like what can you say about like our time each week with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, Um, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that could be said, and there's a lot of different opinions and understandings. I think there's just a lot to unpack with communion, and I don't think we can necessarily hit all the beauty, all the meaning of it every single week, but try to do little nuggets of it here and there. Um, but what I want to say is just with communion, I feel like um, there's something about um, I think there's something to like the tactile way that it invites us to worship. Like you're actually eating a piece of bread, drinking juice. I mean, not that um, other ways that we worship is completely different, but I think there's something special about that and the way that um, in communion it engages our senses. Um, and so I don't know, maybe I don't know if I'm the best. I don't know if I'm explaining that the best way, but I just feel like there's something to that as a way to. I feel like the way I usually think about it is we're kind of responding to God's grace and really receiving it in faith, and I think it's different to do that just in our minds versus like having this actual practice that we can point to, remembering Jesus through that. And and I think I think I shared this a couple Sundays ago, and as I was kind of setting up communion, is that I look forward to communion every week because in some ways for me it's kind of like what we were saying just a minute ago. It's a moment where I can get out of the way and we may have had an awareness of God's presence throughout the whole morning, or we may have had our attention on all the other things going on. But I think something beautiful about communion is that it calls us, in a distinct way to give our attention to Jesus, and to think about his love and his grace, and to really experience that, and to remember that he died and then he rose again and he's alive with us. And so I think communion's just a really special gift we have in the church that points us to that, reminds us of Jesus.
Yeah.
No matter what else we do the rest of the morning, I think it's a holy thing for me, at least.
No, that's good. I think about, as you say that, like Jesus's mindset during that presentation of saying, "Remember me." I mean, he knew that 2,000 years later we'd still be eating meals, and it would be still a common image that mattered, and something that we wouldn't have to make up on the fly. Guys, we're gonna hit a rock with a hammer,
right,
or something like that. It's like, I don't know if that's what he would have said, but like it's an easy thing for someone to say, do this. That's good. Like finally, like each week, like we do reflections, like we take moments to try to help students reflect on the morning, but also reflect on something that maybe God's doing in their lives. This is something I feel like this year we've tried to be really intentional with, try to move forward more in it. Like, what would you say is probably a reason for reflection time, like a value of it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so this is something we do a lot right after the sermon as kind of a response.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just part of it is just that piece, like um, God speaks to us through scripture, but he's not limited to that. Like, as we've just heard this message, just that idea that he wants to continue to speak to us, and to not just to move on and what's next, but to really sit in, okay, what did we just hear, or what might God be actually saying to me even right now as I'm just processing it. What is he inviting me to do about it? Like, what's my response? What is he calling me to do? And I think that's helpful to do, especially just in such a fast-paced environment that junior hires are so used to. Just invite them to pause and to not move on so quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it, at least the way I think about it.
No, it's really good. And when you present that at first, it might seem weird, but that weirdness doesn't last. It's weird because it's weird. It's almost like they long for that. They long for this opportunity to pause. They long for this opportunity to just sit in the presence of God and say, okay, God, what does that have to do with me? Like everything that's happened this morning, what does that have to do with me? And the hope is that would continue throughout the week, where we talk about everyday faith here. Like, It's not about Sunday, it's not about Wednesday, but it's about living for Jesus every day in some way, shape, or form. And you would hope that the response, the reflection, would be a catalyst that helps them continue into Monday. At least that's my view of it.
Yeah, I think it's, our everyday faith overflowing into our times of gathered worship, but then also goes the other way too, that God gathers us together, but then he sends us out into the world to be his witnesses. And so I think what we're doing should flow into, should influence, should change us. Doesn't just stay in that 1 hour block. It should change the way we live, the other 167 hours or whatever.
Yeah. Is that how many it is?
I think so.
Okay. I've never thought about that.
You fact check me.
Somebody will just write it in the comments section.
Yeah.
That'd be great. So, well, Camden, that's good. I appreciate you, man. I think that this was rich when it comes to like helping parents see why we do what we do. And I'm hopeful that in those times of chaos, in those times of distraction, in those times of a bad week, that parents would want to have their students be present in the gym, but also like for them to feel like, no, this is something I need to be a part of a worship experience at church. Because in the midst of all of it, we need it. We're biased because we're followers of Jesus. We understand that we need it, but I feel like everyone needs it. So,
yeah. Do you want to talk about the Jacob Collier?
Oh yeah,
you remember this?
I do. So there's a video. Can we put it in we'll put it in the show notes somehow. I don't know. My guy Miles will have to do that. Guy named Jacob Collier did this video with Chris Martin, who's the lead singer for Coldplay, one of my favorite bands of all time. Started listening to them 24 years ago. Gosh, I'm old. But he creates this experience with the crowd where it's almost like a cappella. Chris Martin's on the keys, but Jacob Collier's kind of, what would you say, like directing a choir.
Yeah, I mean, the different sections he's got, and he's directing them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
My daughter, she's 14. She's like, Dad, it sounds like a choir of angels.
Yep,
And it really did.
that's what I thought too.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I wonder God's response to us singing, if it sounds like that to him, even in my raspy, gross voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think, I mean, that really impacted me, and just, but there's nothing like, distinctly Christian about what they're doing. But in some ways I feel like it's still pointing to beyond themselves. Like, and it just really resonated with me as a worship pastor, because in some ways that's kind of what we're trying to do, creating these moments. What stood out to me is that the congregational engagement was the medium of this moment that really, I mean, I would say it was a spiritual experience. I'm sure many of the people there would say that, because what they're doing in some ways is pointing them to look beyond themselves. And so I think, there's something there, I think, that people are hungry for. Yeah. Whether they're a believer or not, I think we long for that.
That's good. I will say that one of the most spiritual moments I've ever had was when Fix You was playing at a Coldplay concert.
Yeah.
I just remember closing my eyes thinking, this is beautiful. Because you're right, like everyone together, everyone in unison, just experiencing something. We do long for that. It's good. So,
yeah, the beauty that points to the beauty, capital B. Yeah,
that's good. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in on this episode. Grateful for Camden, your ministry here to junior high students, and what we get to do. Can't believe we get to do what we do. It's pretty cool. So, but tune in. Hey, if you're around, come to Eastview sometime. We meet Sunday mornings, 9-11. If you got a junior higher, which you probably do because you're watching this or listening to this, we meet in the gym at our normal campus on 9-11, and then we meet downstairs at our Bloomington campus. So come and check us out sometime. It would be fun to hang out and worship with your students. So, and with that, that's episode 5.
All right. We did it.
I don't know what that is. Dropped.
Can't drop your mic.
Can't drop the mic. That's right. All right, everybody. We'll see you next episode.
See ya.